that the document was indeed a valid representation of the original document. Think of that. We were trying to clear the president. It didn't work out that way. We had to follow the evidence. We let the evidence determine the direction of the investigation. That's what we always do on any investigation. You get the evidence. This one was handled no differently, and no matter what the investigation is about. So now, the important part is to present the pertinent details and the executive summary of our analysis. I'm going to turn this over to Mike Zullo, who dedicated 5 years of his life, 5 years of his life, taking this mission on, which I asked him to do 5 years ago. Mike, come on up and give your thoughts.
Thank you, Sheriff. I want to start by trying to give everyone here, including the media that's been viciously against us from the beginning, an understanding of how I tried to conduct this investigation. I believe in 2012 we did 2 press conferences. In those press conferences, I had made it clear that Sheriff Arpaio's original mandate to me was, Mike, take a look at this, clear this document, because I want to be the guy that clears this document and moves this country forward. This is no good. That was the mandate. Unfortunately, it didn't work out that way. Like the sheriff just told you, when you conduct criminal investigations, you have to let the evidence lead you. You never lead the evidence. And in doing this, my motive was to clear the document, because to be quite honest with you, I didn't believe it. I didn't believe this was possible. I didn't think this would ever happen in this nation. I didn't believe it. Back in 2012, I told you about Reed Hayes, a document examiner. Let me tell you about Reed Hayes, a man with 40 years, since 1974, 40 plus years of experience in examining forensic document, handwriting, a man who's well respected in his expertise, a court-recognized expert, a document examiner. He is the man you go to when somebody gives you a bad check with a bad signature. This is the guy you run to. Law firms use him all the time. He's been maligned. And let me tell you something about Mr. Hayes. When I contacted Mr. Hayes told me right off the bat, I'm an Obama supporter. I voted for him twice. He goes, and I will never do anything to hurt the President of the United States. What I had said to him was, Reed, I am not asking you to hurt the President of the United States. I'm asking you to take a look at this document and clear it and tell me there's nothing wrong with it. Would you at least do that? And he took a look at it. And when he called me back, he told me, Mike, I can't clear this. There's something wrong with it. And I asked him, I said, Reed, would you continue? I said, I know your position, but would you continue? And his answer to me was, this is what I do. I'll look at it. I'll do it. That's a man of integrity, respecting what his ability is to get to the truth. Because for Sheriff Arpaio and myself, this was never about Barack Obama. This is about a document. You take that document and you remove the name Barack Hussein Obama and put your name on there. If it was your document and it was brought to us, we would do the same thing with this document. This document was being investigated from the only way that I ever knew how to do it. You look to prove the guilty party innocent, the one you suspect. If you can prove him innocent, you don't put the wrong guy in jail. But when you try to prove him innocent and the evidence starts to stack up, now you change because the guilt is coming to the top. That's the way this was done. Jerry Corsi and WND. I grilled Jerry Corsi for 16 hours. This is no joke. I didn't believe anything he was showing me until he showed me one document. Everybody thinks it's the Obama document. When I had said that in the past, it wasn't. Jerry Corsi and WND, they're onto something. I'm not so sure they knew it was going to go the way it's going now, but they were onto something. And what we're going to show you today is information that you have never seen before. It was information that was developed by the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office in assistance with actually the gentleman who makes my videos, Mr. Mark Galar. Mark Galar has a unique ability when it comes to digital software and this whole video thing that he does. And Mark Galar and I were on a Skype call. Felt like years. We would go back and forth for years. And at one point, I did alert Mr. Galar to what I was suspecting, and we began to work at it together. What I'm going to do right now is I am going to let the video play in its entirety. Then I'm going to stop it, and I'm going to clear some things up. And then I'm going to let it play one more time, and I'm going to stop it periodically and address some things. I really want you to sit back and have an open mind, because what you're going to see is we utilized forensic document examiners, Reed Hayes in Hawaii, and a company named Forlab in Italy. And I have two different disciplines. I have Reed Hayes, a document examiner, Forlab's forensic digital technicians. Forlabs trains law enforcement throughout Europe. Forlab's specialty is child pornography cases. Forlabs, everybody in that building is a PhD with math equations that, my God, I've never seen in my life. These guys know their stuff. And I'm going to tell you what I respect about both of them. Both Reed Hayes and Marco at Forlabs stayed true to their discipline. One of the tests you do when you have an expert, you want to make sure your expert isn't trying to run you for the money. If I can push the expert, that's not a guy I want. These men could not be pushed. This is their findings, this is how they see it, and this is how they're calling it. So I'm going to run this video for you, and I want you to understand this has nothing to do with anything we ever did before. It doesn't negate what we did before, and I'll explain that. It is new, and it's profound, and it's quite disturbing. So let me play the video for you now, and then we'll move on.
You are looking at two long-form birth certificates from the state of Hawaii. According to the dates on the certificates, these births took place in Honolulu during the month of August in 1961, just 16 days apart. The birth certificate on the left belongs to Barack Obama. The birth certificate on the right belongs to Johanna Ani. After 5 years of intense investigation, which included consultation with one of America's most respected forensic document examiners and a team of European media forensic experts, the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office has reached a conclusion utilizing forensic techniques both old and new. It is the opinion of the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office that the birth certificate on your right belonging to Johanna Ani was in fact used as a source document in the digital creation of Barack Obama's long-form birth certificate. 9 points of forgery in which words, letters, and hand-placed date stamps have been digitally copied from the Ani long-form birth certificate and pasted onto Obama's long-form birth certificate. We'll look at the first 5 points of forgery together since they were brought over from the ID document in one group. Now let's drop out the on-need document as a background and view that again. Now let's look at the date stamps in box 20 and 22. In this case, the stamps were brought over one at a time. But as we do this experiment, ask yourself, what are the odds that two stamps in two separate boxes, stamped by hand 16 days apart, would have the exact same angle in box 20 and the exact same angle in box 22? First, we'll look at the left stamp. Now the right stamp. It should be pointed out that these stamps were looked at by two separate document examiners who specialize in two separate forensic disciplines and who reside on two different continents. Both agreed that these angles are identical on both the Obama document and the Ani document. Let's watch that again without all of the background clutter. It should be noted that Susan and Gretchen Nordijk were born 5 minutes from each other and have consecutive serial numbers. Therefore, their date stamps ostensibly would have been put on back to back. But as you can see, looking at the leftmost date stamps underlined in red and looking at the rightmost date stamps underlined in blue, there is no similarity in terms of the angle of the date stamps. How ironic that Barack Obama's birth certificate and Johanna Ani's birth certificate, which were stamped 16 days apart, are identical in angle according to two separate disciplines within the world of forensic document examination, and yet the Nordijk twins, born 5 minutes from each other, stamped back to back, don't show any similarity in angles. We've made a number of references to angles so far. The reason for that is if you're going to take an item off of one document and place it onto another, the angle is going to remain the same unless you intentionally alter it after you place it on the second document. Watch. You have two separate documents with two hand-placed date stamps at the same angles, it should be obvious that a forgery has taken place. For the next example, we'll need to zoom in a little bit. Now we are going to focus on boxes 6D and 6E within the Obama PDF. Both X's were taken directly from box 6D in the Ani long-form birth certificate. In fact, not only was the X pulled over, but the box itself was pulled over, and various parts of the line on top of the X were also pulled over, according to forensic document experts. Next, we'll drop the ID document out of the picture, except for the items that were used to create the Obama birth certificate.
Now, I know when you see that the first time, kind of looking at it, trying to figure out, okay, what does all this really mean? The date stamps that are at the lower angle of the document, let me try to start this again if I could freeze it.
You are looking at two long-form birth.
You're going to see the date stamps that are in the lower corners of both documents. Now, yes, they have a different date, but the month and year is correct. That document has been in Maricopa County Sheriff's Office possession since the end of 2011. Actually, I took it from Jerry Corsi. Those stamps on those lower left and right corners, we had made a transparency after we got the document, and we laid those stamps one on top of the other. They were close, but not an exact match. And in what we do, close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades. This needed to be an exact match, and it wasn't. And we had looked at this on and off for a couple years. In the meantime, there are operatives, paid operatives, that do anything they can to undermine this investigation and anybody that comes in favor of this investigation. Started throwing out this notion that a 7655 Xerox copier was the forger. Well, newsflash for them, it's not. The 7655, while it does have an ability to replicate some anomalies, it does not do it as presented in the Obama document. We purchased a 7655 Xerox copier. It took us over a year and a half to find someone who still had the correct software from 2011 to install in the machine. 4 labs determined what are called quantization settings in computers, mathematical algorithms. They could get very close to that 2011 software, but again, it wasn't exact. We needed to find the software. We located the software. We loaded the software in the machine. We initiated scanning campaigns, 70, 80 different ways to run the document. In every one of those campaigns, we could not exactly replicate the number of layers, the number of links, and the way information comes over. But these findings that I'm presenting you today have something different than every other circumstance. My goal at that point was we needed to get away from this 7655 copier and these digital forensics problems, these computer-generated issues, and I needed to look at this document completely different. In doing that, I contacted Mark Gallar again, and I asked Mark if he would do me a favor. I said, Mark, would you please make me an overlay video so I can show this to the sheriff? I know there's something here, I'm just not finding it. Mark agrees to make the video, and as Mark is doing the video, he contacts me and he goes, I figured it out. Now, I want you to understand something. I have to stay as neutral in this as possible. I did not want to be the guy that ever figured anything out. I wanted to be the clearinghouse, because what I was going to do was send whatever we found across the globe to Hawaii and Italy, and have independent forensics examiners from two different disciplines either conclude or completely disagree with each other. That was my methodology. That's why I'm telling you, the evidence took us, we didn't take the evidence. When Mark calls me, what he realized was the ANI original certificate that was issued in 1995 by the state of Hawaii had been put on a copier at the Department of Health in Hawaii, and it was a little offset by like 1.5 degrees. And when Mark made the adjustment, those date stamps lined up perfectly. So we stopped, and I sent it to Italy, and I sent it to Hawaii, and I waited. And Italy did all kinds of mathematical formulas, and that's all going to be in their report that's going to get turned over somewhere else. And they called me up, and they told me that those stamps match exactly. And in talking with Marco, I asked him, I said, Marco, look, I gotta talk to you now, not like a scientist. I talk to you like an investigator. In my mind, you can't have the same corresponding date stamp in the same corresponding box at the same corresponding angles on two separate documents that if we believe the Obama certificate is real, they're 16 days apart in creation. And if we don't believe the Obama certificate is real, I have a 54-year-old copy of an original document that was created 16 years ago. I don't think you can do that. And Marco told me that he didn't think you could either because he tried and he was unable to. Waited for Reed Hayes. Reed Hayes contacts me and he tells me, this you can't do, this is impossible. Reed Hayes, who is an educator in his field, told me he tells all his students you will never be able to replicate something exactly by human hand. If it's replicated exactly, there's going to be some other kind of intervention. It's not by human hand. So now I have two document examiners telling me the same thing. Italy has a scientific protocol. They can only gauge probability by the amount of source documents that are provided to them. We only had 9 real birth certificates. I mean, you just can't go out in the street and get Hawaii birth certificates. So they were hindered by 9. Examining those date stamps, and when I tell you about the other issues in the document, they concluded that it is 1,000 times more probable that the document is inauthentic. They also concluded that if they had a greater sampling, that number would be higher, because they have concluded that that document, it is highly improbable, next to impossible, that you will find another document with every anomaly we just showed you. And I'm going to read you some of their quotes in a minute. Reed Hayes, on the other hand, Reed Hayes said, that's forgery, because that's impossible. I called Mark Galar back. I go, Mark, now that we got the date stamps, we need to start looking at the document. We're both looking at the machine at the same time. He's in Texas, I'm here. And he starts to line up the 6-1 that's on the top by the serial number of the birth certificate. And as he does that, all of a sudden, the word Oahu in the center of the page lines up. So I was like, wow, that's strange. I said, Mark, do me a favor. I want you to please go down this document and start matching up every letter and every word, because I think it's going to unlock. And that's what he does. And he calls me back, and he had found those matches that you've seen from the ANI certificate matched exactly to the Obama certificate. It's called textual juxtaposition. In other words, they are in the same relationship to each other no matter where you put them. In other words, somebody took that little X in that corner box. When I play this video again, you're going to watch it differently now. Use that as a point of reference and picked up 3 or 4 other words and moved them over. Sent that to Reed Hayes. Sent that to Italy. Italy concludes, yeah, you know what? You can go to a document. You might find a word that might line up like that. Improbable that you're going to find the number of words that line up like this. Reed Hayes. Reed Hayes is different. Reed Hayes is an old school document examiner. Oh, that's impossible. That can't happen. He goes, but Mike, I found something else. Reed Hayes discovered the little X's in 2 other boxes were identical to an X in the ANI certificate. Not only was the X identical, but the X, the box, and the word above were all taken at once because you couldn't just take the X. Reed Hayes, to me personally, said, Mike, that's like you getting a fingerprint. He said, that's impossible. Reed Hayes also focused on the signature of Stanley Ann Dunham in the Obama certificate. Reed Hayes doesn't believe that's an original signature. He believes it's been piecemealed together. And I'm going to do this. I was going to read a lot of stuff to you, but I'd rather you see the video. I want to read to you Reed Hayes' conclusion this time. Reed Hayes, 40 years, a true professional. The man's a professional. The evidence noted herein is clear and convincing proof that the Obama certificate of live birth posted on whitehouse.gov on April 27, 2011 is a fraudulently manufactured document. Evidence indicates that this certificate of live birth of Johanna Ani is one source utilized in the construction of the certificate of live birth. Reed Hayes' own words, the parentheses, nail in the coffin, close parentheses, that provides the certificate of live birth is inauthentic, is the exact lineup of numerous entries on both the certificate of live birth and the Ani certificate. That's a fraudulent document. You don't get a clearer definition than a fraudulent document. This has nothing to do with a 7655 copier. That copier is irrelevant to our information. The Maricopa County Sheriff's Office in